Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. It's great to see so many new faces. First of all, I want to introduce myself with a longer than one line. I'm an art entrepreneur, a founder of MK Consulting Group, and a finance person first. And now several years ago, I founded FORMah Gallery, which is my heart and soul, with a mission to empower female identifying artists. And this makes 100% of our program. This is how I met Jenna and then Romy. This is Jenna, who holds a PhD in, I have to say it, in culture, in multiculturalism and religious diversity from University of Calgary. I'm deeply impressed and honored to sit next to you ladies. Jenna also holds masters from Sotheby's Institute of Art and founder of Trotter&Sholer Gallery, which is located 10 minutes walk from my gallery. And Romy Cohen, who always was an art enthusiast, but recently focused her energy in collecting art. You hold a degree in architecture, right? And when you're not focused on your career in real estate, Romy goes around the world and in New York to collect and discover new artists. And thank you for that. This is very interesting. So I want to start with the topic that we frequently hear about unique relationships between collectors and artists. And in this conversation, galleries frequently left behind. And I think and believe and actually know that we have important role in the ecosystem. And I want to basically ask you, how did you start this unique relationship of yours between collector and the gallerist? And how did you meet each other? And how did you kick off?
Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
I think, you start because you sort of
I found
initiated
you
it.
more than you found me.
Yeah.
I was actually walking in Brooklyn Heights, and I was taken by this work in this window. It wasn't even a gallery. It was like a clothing shop, but they were a clothing shop that was also showing art. And I went in and I started to talk to the guy who'd sort of curated this very unique space. And I learned that the artist was Derek Weisberg, and I was going to plan a gallery visit. And then, all sorts of things happened, and I never did that. But then fast forward, maybe only a year later, Future Fair was on the front page of the New York Times with Derek Weisberg's work showing and with Jenna showing it. So I'm like, I need to know this woman, Jenna. Like, our taste is so in sync. And I went in. I think the first piece I bought I was a little afraid to make big commitments to art. I think a lot of people who collect art kind of start that way. And I bought this little, it was like a candlestick, which I adored. And then when Jenna had her next show with Derek, I acquired a bigger piece, which I still love. And so I think the idea of really finding people who are resonant with you, that you have both, I think a personality fit matters and also an aesthetic fit. So we've become friends as well as I'm a patron, I guess. No, I'm a collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Romy came into the gallery when we had these small pieces by Derek, and we started talking. And then I don't remember when we started hanging out outside the gallery, if that was before his next show or after the next show. But it all just kind of, happened. And then, we like a lot of the same things, and the relationship went from there.
So you share this incredible trust, and I really want to understand, how do you impact each other's choices, right? Which is interesting to me because I feel you receive mutual feedback one from another.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me that's special about my relationship with Romy is that we are genuinely friends. And so when she comes to the gallery and we have a new show up, I get unfiltered feedback. But I get it from somebody I trust and love, and I know it's coming from a place of care and honesty, and also from a place where I think we both like a little bit of conflict. So even when there is something different between what we might like or what I'm showing, there's an excitement in that conversation about why it feels this way, or why, I wouldn't necessarily take a show down immediately, but I would think very carefully about what I'm doing, because I do really trust Romy's point of view.
And 100% vice versa, right? I can go in and say, like, I'm not sure about this. And Jenna can bring excitement or a perspective that I'm like, wait, I didn't really see it that way. Or let me, like, I think most good work, it takes a little bit to absorb, right? If you get it this quick, it's probably not, a long-term keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Jenna will challenge me in how I look at a piece or what I'm looking for in a piece. And so there's this dialogue between us, and I hope I'm always generous. I was in architecture school, and the critiques were so cruel. They were very cruel critiques. I really try very hard when I'm like critiquing to be generous of spirit, but you let me know if I'm ever too harsh.
No, I appreciate it, and I came from the academic world, so I think having those critical conversations are really important, and it doesn't necessarily. I don't think it diminishes what you're doing. I think it is really additive, personally.
So, just to jump to our next question, we all, I bet there are a lot of collectors here, and we all collect. And I'm really curious about what was the first piece you collected and how, and the last one.
So the first piece I collected was well before I was in the art world. I was still doing grad school in Canada, and I have a friend who's an artist, and he had a show. Actually, no, he didn't even have a show. I saw the work somehow, and I said, I want that piece, and it was a print that he had made, so he was able to get me an edition of the print, and it's currently hanging in my nephew's bedroom in Canada, because when I moved here, I didn't bring everything with me, and my brother somehow managed to find a bunch of this work, and the next time I came home, it was on the walls, but it's at least there being enjoyed, and it's safe, so, yeah.
So let's see, I think the first piece that I would really consider like an art piece that I bought was somewhere around 2018. I kind of got a lot of aesthetic and economic freedom, and that's when I really kind of think of my starting collecting. And the first piece I bought, I sort of wanted a brand name, right? And so I bought a Marilyn Minter photograph, which like I obviously like related to the strong feminist messages in it, and I felt comfortable. Like I wasn't really comfortable in my own taste yet, but I was comfortable in knowing that I liked everything that she was about, and that this would be a piece that would be a good part of my life. And I still love that piece, maybe not 100% for the aesthetic impact of it, but for what it represented to me in that point of my life. And so I think why one appreciates their own art is very personal, right? Like, I have some of my own work up on the walls, and I remember when I made that, it's very personal how one collects and why one likes their art. So that was my first kind of.
Would you share about your last one?
My last one. I bought this little ring yesterday.
Okay.
I don't know. I should have had that. It might be the Derek Weisberg sculpture. No. I bought the. I don't know. It becomes part of my life, and then I don't really. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Jessica Lancaster is also a piece from Jenna, which is also very feminist in it's women's legs that they're actually, it's a painting, but it looks like a 50s photograph, and so it has this kind of interplay between like women, community, and 50s vibes, but somehow empowerment beyond that 50s vibes. Like there's a lot in that piece that speaks again to sort of women, I think. It's beautiful. I love it. Yeah.
She's a great artist.
It's interesting, the focus. And I will get back to this later, but before that, I want to ask you, and I received this question many times, how do you choose your art? And I can share that I need to feel it, and then forever business finance person, I think, and I do treat art sometimes as an investment, and I'm always curious, how do collectors, what do you think about it, to treat art as an investment? And Jenna, how does it affect you, the choice to look at art as a financial investment?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to love it. I mean, that being said, my first piece, I was like, okay, well, if I'm making a mistake, like this is a name that will have a resale market, so I'll feel, it couldn't be a mistake because I'd be able to resell it. I've gotten more comfortable since then. And I take more time now, I think, when I collect pieces, where I'll look at something a few more times to really find my personal reaction to it. Again, like I said before, like if you love it immediately, it may be that you still love it again and it gets deeper the second or third time you look at it, but maybe that's just kind of a visceral reaction that it won't really hold up, that you can look at it for years or enjoy it for years. I forgot where I was going with that train of thought. What was the question? The value doesn't not matter to me. I still check on like what the resale on that piece is. Or I have a number of pieces that I like kind of check and see, what the market is like. But so far I've been really lucky and I really love everything I have, and I haven't been tempted to de-access anything. And I still have wall space, so I have friends who have a lot of art who need to figure out where to put some of it.
But you are aware, you're very aware, obviously, that there is
100%.
like a market. And Jenna, what do you think?
I think partly that's my job, thinking about art as an investment. When I am working with an artist, I'm always thinking about what's that relationship that I have with the artist going to be in 10 years or in 15 years, and how can I make sure that that relationship is still strong, or that they've moved on to something bigger and better. When I'm talking to collectors, I don't really like to talk too much about investments because I don't want to make empty promises. But I think when we're thinking about how do we nurture an artist's career, and a big part of that is finding the right collectors. So a collector who's going to come back in and maybe support the same artist once or twice, or who's going to speak favorably about the artist to their friends and family. So I think the investment is kind of it's almost like what I'm investing into the success of the artist, rather than promising that there is going to be this monetary investment, in a few years when you're able to resell something.
Well, and that's actually an interesting point to me. Like, I have bought pieces at some of the kind of, shall we say, more random fairs out there, and those are just kind of, I don't want to say throwaways, right? I'm like, okay, that's the one I'll put in my bathroom, and I don't ever expect anything to really come of that, and that's just kind of a placeholder. But when I really want to love something and keep it forever, it's important to me to know that the gallerist is somebody who's investing in their artists and is over time sort of developing and nurturing their artists, so that anything I purchase is going to have some
longevity.
Yeah, longevity, exactly.
I also think something, and we've talked about this, when I think about art as an investment, and I think this is particularly salient in this space, is we should be buying women. Women's work is still undervalued. It's still something that collectors can get at a really good price, and that in the long run, when we have more clarity about gender politics and things in the future, I think in terms of an artwork that's actually going to do really well, if you want that, you should be buying female artists.
Yes, I agree. Especially as a gallerist focusing on specifically on art made by women. And I ask every collector that I'm very curious about you, Romy. And there is always the saying that there is women have to get naked to the mat, and then there are we'll always see this weird numbers of only 11% of U.S. acquisitions in museums in U.S. are for women artists, and then there is like a very small growth of acquisitions from year to year, like up to 1%. Of women artists, and there are a lot of this not happy numbers, but I do ask collectors that maybe not collect secondary market that are part of these numbers. Do you keep track of how many women artists you have in your collection and why?
Well, I have a funny story with that I had somebody who came to my house and was like, oh, tell me about your art. And I was kind of walking her through, and this is when I got that piece. And she said, oh, that's interesting. You only collect strong women. And I was like, oh, do I? Actually, I guess that's true. And a lot of my work actually happens to be made by women. But I have a dialogue with my work where it's I collect it because it resonates in certain ways. But then over time, I'm sort of pulling out themes of the things that I like, right? The themes aren't always what come to mind first. Some people are kind of directed, I collect this theme or I collect this idea, and I don't do that. But the ideas seem to be emerging over time, and one of them, 100%, obviously I have a piece by Derek, but I think he may be one of the only men in my collection. And actually, I think part of that, like, he works in porcelain, which is this very delicate material, but then he kind of makes it strong and it's a little broken. I feel like it actually has a lot of the issues about strength and not weakness, that's not the word, vulnerability, I think, that I like in feminist work. So not to call him like he's a very feminine male artist,
Yeah.
but yeah, a lot of my work, almost all of my work is made by women, and that happened by accident.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Jenna, does it somehow affect your program, this thought of that you want to promote women artists and you want to put them on the map?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I don't focus exclusively on women artists. I'm
okay.
about to do 3 shows of men back to back, but then 2 shows by women at the end of the year. And I started the year with an exhibition by a woman. I think when I started the gallery, it was important to me that there was gender parity in my program. That's been more challenging than I expected it to be. I had the position always that if you don't have that, you're just not trying hard enough. And I think that there's still truth to that, and maybe I'm not trying hard enough, but you get overwhelmed and busy and all of these things, and then the next thing you know, you're realizing you haven't made good on your promise. And then I'm also finding that still in terms of the market, I tend to sell work by male artists more easily, and I'm not sure what that is, and I'm not sure why that's happening, but it has been a trend that I've noticed at the gallery too. So it's something that I'm keenly aware of all the time and sort of trying to negotiate and think about as I plan for future years and future programming.
Well, you're not the only one. I just read something by Artsy. They said that on their platform, which is huge, only 25% of inquiries are for women artists. And I find it's just, wow.
But I think there's
Blow my
something
mind.
also here with, Romy's comment at the beginning that when you first start out, you want a name brand, or you're not sure if you're comfortable in your taste. And I think that there's something so exciting about not being comfortable in your taste. And I think as somebody builds a collection, if they're not sort of bringing in things that you're not always 100% sure about. I mean, that's the fun of it to me and even as I'm programming, sometimes I put up a show and I think, oh my God, what have I just done? And I love those shows. They end up being so exciting. Sometimes they don't sell at all, and sometimes they do great. And I've never been able to predict it. So I think living in that discomfort is part of the fun of being in this world. And then to the point of these inquiries, when people are unsure or feel that maybe this world is being gatekept, you do the safe thing. And I think if we can all start to take little risks and be willing to trust our gut or have fun with the process and not be worried about being right, that could be a shift towards maybe
I love this approach, really. And I guess we're getting back to a larger question: why collect in the first place? Um, and how do you interact with the collected art over time? Like, how does it become a part of your environment? We trade we buy and sell something that it's not just a piece; it has soul and it lives with us. And I don't even know how to end the sentence, but seriously, it has a deeper meaning and presence in our spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, how do you treat your art over time? How does it become a part of your environment, etc.?
Do you want to?
Sure. My relationship to my work changes over time. I have one piece that's very conceptual, and it's language based, and it's also graphically quite specific, but how the language changes over time and how I'm reading that message over time and how it's evolving for me, it makes this piece that seems kind of simple on the out, from the frontward sort of appearance. It's a pretty simple piece, but it's kind of, when I walk into the house, it's one of the first things I see. And the meaning has absolutely evolved for me, and how I read it and how it resonates with me is different. And it's not like I bought it and said I'm going to stand in front of this and contemplate it. I don't know when I'm going to have that moment where I feel like, oh, I need to stop here today and just spend a minute with you because for some reason today you're speaking to me, or I'm going to have an experience with you in my space. So I think it's really interesting. Like in the beginning, I felt this pressure like, oh, I need to get things that I want to sit down and contemplate, and I do, but it's not that way, right? It's like there's a richness in my environment that causes me to have a rich aesthetic experience, beyond what a couch can do for you. It's nice to have a nice couch, right? But I've never contemplated my sofa. Like, not that there aren't people who collect really high design sofas, but yeah, it just gives me this experience of my own place that's much richer than decorative objects could do.
Yeah, I think it in our lived spaces, and also just in the spaces that we are existing in, it changes the energy of the room or the space and kind of allows the other activities and the other things that are going on in that space to be influenced by that. So I always joke, like, I love to go to quiet rooms filled with art and read a book. Like, my favorite thing, I always want to I wish I could kick people out of museums and be alone in there with whatever book I'm reading right now. And doing that, I'm looking at the book. I'm not even looking at the artwork. So it sort of doesn't make sense why I want to do that. But I do think that there's sort of like an energetic thing that happens when you fill a space with works that are doing something or mean something and have meant something to so many other people. They meant something to the artist. They meant something to the other people who viewed the work before you or who've come into your space and engaged with them in any way. And I think, I think it's something that we all do. Everybody puts something on their walls. Everybody adorns their space in some way, since people were painting on caves. So it's important to us, clearly. And sometimes I'm not sure if there needs to be an exact explanation of why. It is this, to go back to my weird religious studies background, you get to a point sometimes where you don't know why something is what it is, but you just believe it. And so the same thing with artwork, I think sometimes you just have to experience it and let that be the end of it.
And I actually love going to other people's spaces because I feel like you learn so much about people when you see what they collect or what they respond to. And it's a much more personal way of experiencing a space, I think, than almost anything else, right? It's like, what do you care? And then talking to people, almost everybody has a story. Oh, I got this then, or, whatever. And I love hearing the stories about people and how and when they acquired something and where it fits in their life. Like, it's really an access point into getting to know somebody in a really beautiful way.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Always stories behind how you bought this piece or that piece. When I just moved to the US, I didn't have a couch yet. I had a carpet, no table and chairs, but a piece of art, and teacups. It's my first 3 acquisitions.
Well, and to that point, that sort of helps us. It's almost like a psychological experiment we're doing with ourselves, figuring out why am I attracted to this? Why do I want to live with this? What is it making me think of every day? Like, we're really also doing a lot of self-discovery when we're collecting art.
Absolutely. It's a very conscious process, right? Like, you're spending time almost as a meditative experience to spend time with the artwork, which is fascinating. Mm-hmm. So it brings me basically to the last question. What are your acquisition plans, if you want to share, and what are your plans just in general in the art universe, or plans for the gallery?
Okay, well, I have one very big wall that I have just not been able to figure out how to approach it, especially since it's a wall that in some iteration of my house will probably come down, which makes it even harder. But, there's that, put the first piece on, like, either I'm going to buy something enormous, which doesn't make sense if the wall might come down, or, right, I can't buy one little thing and put it on the wall, right? Like, I'm really actually struggling with how to curate this wall because, like, I either need to buy 10 small things or one big thing. Like, I can't just do, so that's my struggle right now, is how to curate that wall. And it's also a wall that does have a couch in front of it. And so you can't really get that close to it, which makes smaller things even harder, right? So I do pay attention to sort of, how will one appreciate this? How close do you need to be to it to appreciate it? Like, I don't even consider these real collection pieces, but the first pieces of work I bought were these little Magnum square print photography. I was doing photography for some time, and I have all these like little photography pieces. And in that same hallway that has the Renee Green piece, I have all my little Magnum square print, but it's a hallway, and you can get this close to them and really appreciate them,
Yes.
which clearly I can't do on my big wall behind the couch. So that's my struggle right now is how to populate that wall.
Wonderful. Jenna?
Well, from the gallery side, one of the things that we're doing is we're creating like an education-based group for new collectors. So that's something that we're launching right now. I'm sort of in discussion with some people I know to get feedback and to get some things before we get that off the ground, but really kind of giving people the knowledge and the tools that, I mean, the first time I bought a piece of art, I was also terrified. I mean, not the one I bought for my friend, but when I went into a gallery, and it was a really intimidating space to go into. And I grew up in a small town in Canada. It wasn't part of my life. And knowing that just access to a little bit of the terminology, a little bit of the jargon, and a few of the sort of social rules of art collecting can open it wide up to you. That's something that I'm trying to figure out. How do I share that with people who are eager to learn that? So we're working on that right now. And then we have a new exhibition, which I have to plug since I'm here, opening on May 9th at the Gallery downtown by Marcus Mangani. And it's a sculpture exhibition. One of the sculptures it takes up most of the gallery space. It's not going to be easy to collect at all. So I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do about that. But he's looking at systems of oppression in America, particularly the carceral system. So this piece is the same footprint as a solitary confinement cell, and it really changes the gallery space in a way that's uncomfortable and exciting and really beautiful. So that opens May 9th if people are here.
I just want to interject for a minute. That's one of the things that I really love about Jenna's gallery, not to just purely I never know what I'm going to find there, right? And it's always exciting. I may not always love it, but it always gives me an exciting art experience. So that for me is obviously part of my relationship with Jenna, that she always brings things in that I'm excited by. And I think people need to find their gallerists, right, that do the things that resonate or are excited about, which may not, everybody might not love get excited about all the things Jenna brings in, but I do, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great relationship that way, that I'm always excited, like, oh, who's this sculpture piece? It probably won't fit on my wall.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I want to say something about the program, because I'm personally really excited about the program that Jenna creates right now. I have a lot of friends, and I come from a finance industry, and I have a lot of friends who constantly ask me, okay, what's the next thing that will be great on the market, that I can buy, that I can invest in, that I can keep for years. And I'm trying to explain how to properly to play by the rules of the market. And I kind of trying to tell them, go to this gallery and this, and they're terrified by so many galleries, by such a diversity of art and artists and just different mediums. So I think the program, and I had a sneak peek on it, which I love, and I think it will be super beneficial for younger collectors. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's something about jumping into a cold pool, right? You just
Yes.
got to jump in and get over it, and then you're like, okay, wait, I can't speak to gallerists. I am smart enough, or I am, and get your legs, right? Get your sea legs, because
Yes.
it doesn't happen immediately. You just have to kind of dive in and learn some of the
Over time.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
It takes a little bit of courage. So I want to open the conversation for questions, and if you want to answer or share something from your personal collecting experience or as an artist, or ask questions to Collector and the Gallerist.
Really have to know our history. You don't have to know it the whole, but you have to know what you're looking at. And it's so much fun learning about art history, and you have to educate yourself to a certain degree. You can't just be looking. I mean, it's like picking a person just for looks. I mean, how great does that work out? And then you have to look. You have to love looking. If you don't love looking, then it's not a pursuit for you.
course.
Yeah.
And also, I have to say, the art market took a wrong turn in the art world. Now it's an art business, an art market. But if you go to museums, you see people donated everything. They didn't think of making money and used to donate and give it to everybody so they could see. And now it just took a wrong turn. It's kind of, I'm glad that people buy art. Don't get me wrong, for whatever the reason. I don't care. But I think that, and I want to compliment you, Jenna, because people have to support small galleries. They have to buy, and also, to me, the fun part is, looking and getting artists that are just starting out.
Yes.
Anyone can buy artists that already have names. Good for them. But the great fun to me is looking because your eye is somewhat educated because you've done the work. You know your history. You've looked a lot, and then you say, I like that artist, and you have good reason to. And I'm not putting down people that buy it for whatever reason, but that's the joy of it.
And I
Elaine,
think,
can I add something to your point? I actually don't have a formal art history education, and I actually rely on my gallerist to tell me what are the layers here, right? Because I didn't get a formal art history, and so I think actually the more you go to galleries and the more you speak to the gallerist, that's when your history can also be filled in, right? Because I think some people feel like they don't know enough about art to go into those spaces, and I think I rely on those spaces to inform me more about art, and that's why the relationship with the gallerist is so important.
Yeah, I want to shout out to Jenna. I've done business with Jenna for some time, and I had started collecting by meeting artists many years ago, 30 years ago, and I generally acquired working artists. Then I ended up in New York, and I started visiting galleries, and I became a collector who I didn't really have a relationship with any galleries or any gallerists. I just said, oh, I went in there because I saw something I liked. I met Jenna when she was before Trotter&Sholer, when she was working at another gallery, and I had gotten into a pop art phase, and I acquired a piece from the gallery she was working at, and she turned me on to. She just talked directly to me about stuff she knew about local artists doing work she thought I might like. Trotter&Sholer opens, like, well, that's where I'm going to go, and my gallerist became my teacher. And I could say to her, I'm only interested in work by women, BIPOC, and queer artists. I'm only interested in looking at art like that. And she could tell me exactly who to look at, and that relationship is really at this point, that my relationship with Jenna at this point is part of the cornerstone of my knowledge of being a collector. Because I really knew nothing. I knew what I liked, but I didn't know how to go about finding it. And Jenna and Trotter&Sholer became that info for me.
It's beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for that.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's one of our jobs as a gallerist. And as we mentioned earlier, my background is philosophy, not art history. So I feel like I'm constantly doing catch-up learning. And Maryana can speak to this as well.
Yes.
But when we're working with the artists, for me, that's one of the reasons the press release is so important, and spending the time with the artists before we open the show to understand who have they been thinking about, what have they been thinking about, why are we putting this work in a gallery space now, why are we putting this work with this work, and really, having thought that all the way through so that we're able to clearly and effectively communicate that to collectors. We've talked a lot about how, sometimes this art speak, and you can read something that's so opaque, and you kind of wonder why it's there. So it's important to me that when we're putting out writing and we're putting out information, it's clear, it's understandable, and it actually says something. There's a reason that we've spent the hours writing that statement.
Yes, absolutely. I can't agree more. And I always look for good artists to continue the program that hold this meaning, that do their own kind of research about the artwork that they create. And it also, when I'm doing my research, I circling back and catching up on all the art history that is incorporated in their work, which is.
And one of the greatest things is you'll have a collector come in, and all of a sudden they'll put something into a context of an artist that I am unfamiliar with, And I love that. I love it when an artist says, "Oh, have you heard of this person?" And I have to be "No, I haven't." And then I've got something to look at and be filled in. So that relationship also becomes very reciprocal. There's a real conversation there. And I think gallerists learning from collectors and learning from artists is why this job is fun in the first place.
I want to say one thing, the gallerists are not all equal. Some will educate you like Jenna and care, and some will just sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. So you have to be careful, and you have to pick your friends with a gallerist wisely, and that takes time.
I agree. I can't agree more. Would you? Anyone more questions to Jenna or to Romy? Can I redirect my question to Roger and Rebecca, who sit here, both of you guys collectors, and I know you personally. And would you like to share or to top on something that we spoke about collecting so far?
Well, I want to thank Jenna for taking me out of my little bubble. I met Jenna I don't know, a long time ago, and I was only buying art that you knew about, and she kind of coaxed me into spending a little bit more on unknown artists, and then that became a little bit more, and became a little bit more, and then it became kind of substantial, and then it kind of worked out. So, I blindly trusted Jenna, and it kind of worked.
Compulsive collector, but he's also developed so much of his own aesthetic that he's now an artist who is also making art and showing art.
Yes.
And not only is he, but it's all provocative.
It's all
And just plugging Roger has another show coming up soon.
Yes.
In September.
They'll let you know about it.
All right. So I want to thank you, everyone, for coming, for joining us for this conversation. We're here for a little bit, and then you can find Jenna at, what is your booth number?
R13.
R13.
It's right around the corner from Mariana's booth,
Yes,
near the
and myself in
back.
U5. So thank you so much. Thank you, ladies.